All-in-one ETFs or individual ETFs, and which one makes you more money? And which one makes more sense for you? Today, we're going to go over those concepts and which one makes most sense for you. So, currently, there are two pretty popular investment strategies when it comes to ETFs. The first being an all in one ETF. In this type of ETF, the allocation to different markets is done automatically for you, as well as the rebalancing of the percentages for each of those markets. And then with individual ETFs, this is where they track a specific thing, like for instance, VFV will track the US stock market, right? So when I'm saying individual ETFs, I mean ETFs that represent each one of those markets. Now, it's a pretty agreed upon investment strategy to diversify your investments and have investments all over the world rather than just in one place. This seems to be pretty agreed upon by a lot of different people. There are a couple ways of doing that with ETFs, and the two most popular ways are all-in-one ETF investing or individually picking the underlying ETFs that represent the all-in-one ETF. Now, an all-in-one ETF will automatically have diversification across the globe. So within an all-in-one ETF, this allocation is done automatically, and representation from world markets, the US market, the Canadian market will all be in this all-in-one ETF. And then on the other side, if you had individual ETFs, you would choose the individual ETFs that represent each market. So you would choose an ETF that represents Canada. You would choose an ETF that represents the US. And then you would choose an ETF that represents the world. And this can get pretty complex too. Like you can go to emerging markets, you can have established markets. There can be all different types of ETFs that track different things. But the main idea is to usually just track the US, Canada, and the world. So that's what we'll be focusing on today in this video. So first I want to go over if you had an individual ETF stock portfolio and the pros and cons of having that and what to expect. So using the three markets we discussed earlier, an example portfolio could be 50% to an ETF that tracks the US market, 30% to an ETF that tracks the world market, and then 20% to an ETF that tracks Canada. Now, ideally here, you'd want to keep those same percentages year after year. This way, when one market does better than the others, you could then rebalance it and sell a little bit of that stock and contribute it to one of the markets that performed worse. This way, you're kind of taking advantage of a market when it's at a high point and using that money to buy stocks at a discount in a low market. So this is called rebalancing, and it is a huge part of investing and super important. So that way you're diversified and you are taking advantage of the markets when they are low, and you're also maximizing your investments. So pretty much everyone agrees that rebalancing is super important and vital to having a successful portfolio. Now, the thing is that generally does take a lot of time and brain power. You have to selectively be picking stocks and rebalancing. If it's in an account that is taxable, then you have to worry about taxes. So there are a lot more things that you have to think about when doing your own rebalancing and keeping track of your portfolio. So then I'd guess you'd ask, like, why would anyone do that? And there are a couple reasons why this could be good, especially if you have a portfolio that is worth a lot. The first being the management fees on these ETFs. So again, any ETF is going to be a pretty good management fee, especially compared to a mutual fund. But between all-in-one ETFs and the individual ETFs, the individual ones generally do have a lower fee, which makes them a lot more attractive in that way, especially if you have a lot of money. Again, if there's not much money in question, then this becomes less important. But as you get more money and you have more opportunity, you might want to start thinking about this strategy. And then if you do have this individualized ETF plan that you have, there are some tax benefits that you could plan for. For instance, by holding a Canadian ETF in a taxable brokerage account, that's going to be taxed differently than, say, you had an all-in-one investment. So just keep that in mind as well. There's a lot of different benefits with that, especially with dividends. So that's another reason why you might want to individually pick the ETFs. And it gives you more room to kind of like play around and pick what you want to do. But again, this is a lot more work and it requires a lot of attention. And if you don't rebalance, then you're not taking the full utilization out of this strategy. So there's different things to think about here. Definitely, I think when you have a larger portfolio, it becomes more important or something that you'd want to consider. So let's talk about the flip side, the all-in-one ETFs. Now, all-in-one ETFs do all of this automatically for you, all of the rebalancing. So it makes it a very easy, beginner-friendly type of investment. And it's also worry-free, stress-free. You just buy this ETF and it sits there and it'll grow and it'll do the automatic rebalancing for you. Again, these type do generally have a higher management fee, so just keep that in mind. But again, it's nothing compared to like what a mutual fund would cost. So you're still winning by having an ETF, and this has got to be one of the most like stress-free ways of investing. And I definitely would recommend that to anyone who's just looking to grow their money and not have to do much thinking about it. And then I think it's also useful to have this tip if you have some sort of money that you're not actively managing, like say you have money in a lira that's just kind of sitting there. This could be something great to just put it in. You don't have to worry about it. Or for like education plans, if you don't want to worry about the rebalancing, just buy this type of ETF and then you can watch it grow and not have to worry about rebalancing. You kind of set it and forget it, which is really nice if you're looking for that type of passive investing. However, if you do want to get every cent possible and maximize the tax strategies, and if investing is like a hobby to you, then I would definitely look into individual ETFs. This way you can kind of keep an eye on it and manage it how you would want to manage it and make the allocations in the percentages that you would want. Like say you wanted a bit less US market or a bit more Canadian market. Like you could make those investments based on what you want to consider. So I hope this helped with understanding the different ETFs and the different strategies for investing within ETFs. Like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.